I've got some really exciting news dealing with alcohol deliveries on UberEats and platforms like it. I'm telling you, the alcohol deliveries can be both exhilarating and terrifying. And this should really cause you to pay close attention because I don't want you to get into trouble. And I'm going to share a little bit. First, I want to thank a viewer. He asked this question and I want to answer it, but he's kind of getting into this secret way of doing ID verification. And I don't want to really go through this publicly, but I think it's wise if I share in general. I think you're going to get the idea. And I definitely want to let you know there are some potential consequences for this. So just to start off, I'm going to briefly use some of Uber Eats' own training material for the alcohol deliveries. And don't worry, I'm not going to bore you to death with this. It's going to be quick. I also happened to do an alcohol delivery this morning and it went really smoothly. So what I'm going to do is go through each step in that process. And along the way, I'm going to give you valuable tips. That way it helps you as the driver be safe and profitable and just know how to deal when things go wrong. And as a hypothetical, I'll talk through what if it doesn't work out and you have to return the order. So this is going to be an information-packed video. And trust me, alcohol deliveries are great. They pay really well. If you think about it, they're treating you like you're their bartender. You're bringing them alcohol. So generally, they're going to tip you well. And just talking about the little secret thing about ID verification, here's the first question. True or false? You can be held criminally liable for delivering alcohol to an underage or intoxicated person. Clearly, the answer is yes. So let me caution you. You need to be very careful and do your job and do it well. Because you know what? The law is what matters here, not your feelings about the topic. So the order this morning was great. It came across as $8 and I quickly barely got a screenshot of it. So getting in here now, it's now a couple hours later. I did make $2.87 and the tip ended up being $5.13. So $8 and it was a total of 16 minutes of my time. Really easy. It's like any other delivery. You go into the liquor store or whatever store the alcohol's in and you pick it up. And then just as a pro tip here, I'll show you, I have some footage that may have not turned out well. I have a bag that I put the alcohol delivery in, and there's a reason for this. So as you can see using this bag, yes, the alcohol came in its own bag, but what I want to do is put it in my own container that's stronger and more protected. And the reason for this, if the alcohol delivery doesn't go smoothly, I know I can grab that, I can maintain control of it. I'm not going to put it anywhere near the customer could grab it or do something. And I'll get to that pro tip here in a second. So that's what that footage shows. And obviously, if there's a lot of glass containers, cradling it in your own package to keep it safe is always a good idea. No one wants to order expensive alcohol and then it shows up broken. So this order was a total of 10 gin martinis, 200 milliliters. It was basically just a bag of drinks like you see there that I was trying to put in the bag. And it was a short distance delivery, only a couple miles. Now, here's what you do when you get close to the customer within a few minutes. I always send a text message, and the reason is to relate to them and show that I care about their order. And they're going to reward you with a tip and high ratings. And I'll put that up as a screenshot for you. You can see where I type the message to the customer, basically announcing, hey, I'm almost there. So once you've parked and you have the alcohol with you, as you go up to the door, what I like to do is scroll through the app here because it's going to take some time to load up where you scan the ID. The first one, it says check for sobriety. And this is where you're asking the person, are you 21 or older? And that's something that you should do. Now, do I do that all the time? I'm not going to admit that here, but that is the training that we're supposed to ask. And if they do appear intoxicated, then you would decline it and then return it. And we'll cover that here in a little bit. And then I get to the screen here where you can see it asks, what kind of document does the customer have? A driver's license, national ID, or passport? And I have scanned all types. So do pay attention on the passport. It's a little bit different. And you'll get experience with that, but it's not very hard. Most people use their driver's license, and so you want to flip it over. And then you also want to make sure that the ID matches their face. So be careful of that. and then you want to follow in the app the steps to process the ID. The app has gotten pretty good about being quick about scanning unless there's no cell coverage. And so getting back to what's a valid form of ID, you heard me mention what you need. And then in the training, it talks about a credit card or debit card. Obviously not. And I think you're going to recognize pretty soon if someone's intoxicated, then you shouldn't hand that over, even if their ID is valid. You know, it talks about impaired reactions, stumbling, glassy eyes, fumbling for their ID, slurred speech, all of the above. So you never want to turn over alcohol to an intoxicated person. Think of the legal liability. Say they go get in their car and kill a bunch of people, and they figure out that you were the last person that gave them alcohol. I wouldn't want that on my conscience, and you need to do what's right. So never turn over alcohol to drunk people. Another pro tip that I didn't mention, alcohol deliveries do pay really well, but like I mentioned with the intoxicated people, it has the potential to go wrong. So please protect yourself at night. Make sure you have a light, a flashlight, some kind of protection. This spray really helps customers be really nice should you need it. So things like that are something to consider before you get into a situation. That's why I like putting it in a bag. That way, if it's not going well, I'm not keeping it near them. Now, let's say you're suspicious from the beginning. What I recommend is leave the alcohol in your car. That way you're going up to the door, checking the ID, and if it's all clear, you could say, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be right back with your order. At least this way you can get away quickly and there's less issues with confrontation. Because I'll tell you what, the worst thing is to have a drunk person get angry and not understand what you're trying to do, or not care and get angry at you. You don't want to have any kind of violent interaction. So if you leave the alcohol in the car, you can get away pretty quickly on foot. So I haven't had to do that yet, but that has always been a backup for me. So this is a good spot to talk about how to return alcohol. And it's overall pretty easy. There's been times actually, there was another delivery that I had done. I went up to the house and I tried to find the guy. His roommate finally answered the door because this gentleman didn't respond to voice, text, physically trying to knock on the door. His roommate said, oh, he's passed out somewhere. So right then I was like, all right, well, this is a few years ago. Now I get to learn the returning process of alcohol. Overall, it was really easy. There's a menu in the app where you say the reason that you can't complete the delivery. And then it's so simple. It just directs you to bring it back to the store. And when you go there, you let that liquor store owner know what happened. And I did this with this guy. Actually, I asked him if he's a repeat customer and he should probably not deliver to him anymore, because apparently this guy had a history of it. And the liquor store was actually the same place years ago that I delivered that order, or tried to. And then this morning, the one that went really well with those 10 drinks with the elderly gentleman. So that's something how things work out. So when you bring the alcohol back, then UberEats is going to pay you obviously for going to the house or location, and then they're paying you a little bit to bring it back to the store or the liquor store. No matter what, this is the right thing to do, and you just need to do it. And then you can move on and get another delivery. And now let's get into the ID verification thing, the little bit of a secret that I wanted to share, but not readily admit to here in public. So the viewer rightly asked, hey, what happens if you have an order and the ID doesn't match the person that ordered it? What do you do? Well, think about it this way. Anybody can order anything. And as long as you have a person that has a valid ID and their photo matches that ID, you're validating that this person is allowed to have alcohol. And there's nothing wrong with scanning their ID and putting the information in. And that way you're doing the right thing and you're obeying the law. This is key. Is it possible to scan someone else's ID? Like your ID? Yes, it is. So what could be the consequences if you're scanning your own ID in order to hand the alcohol over to anybody? And obviously, I would trust that if you did do this, it's to someone who's over 21. I would say, worst case, you can get kicked off the app immediately. But more likely, Uber Eats is probably going to send you a warning and just say that you can't do this. And if you violate the terms and the law, then you're not going to be on the app. So I would recommend only save this for an emergency. And I can't really think of what emergency would involve alcohol. Can you? Does someone need alcohol that bad and they don't have an ID, but you're there to save the day? I don't know. Maybe. But all joking aside, this would be exceedingly rare. Far more common, like the viewer mentioned, is what if it's not the person who placed the order? In this case, the second person, as long as you've verified the ID with their face, then there's no problem. And the ID verification topic, it doesn't just apply to alcohol. Think about it. When you're out doing shop and pay orders or other deliveries, you have alcohol deliveries, you have medication. That involves both prescription medication as well as over the counter. So don't worry, by learning about the ID verification and how to protect yourself and what to do, this is going to come in handy. I personally feel bad when I know they're an adult and they're ordering cold medicine because they have sick kids or they're sick. And here I'm disturbing them because they've done a shop and pay order. They want me to do it and they're at home sick. They don't feel well. And then I have to ask them for their ID. And I just say, I'm so sorry. I know you don't feel well, but I have to just scan your ID and I'll be quick. Overall, just use your great customer service skills to help all the customers. Alcohol deliveries are really good because I'll tell you what, they see you as the bartender. You can get some really good tips. And after going over this information, you know how to do things safely and efficiently. And should you even have to return the order, it's not that hard. But wait, there are other kinds of orders on Uber Eats out there. Wouldn't you like to know how to select them and be profitable and safe at the same time? Trust me, this is huge. I've got great news for you. I've made a video covering both of those topics, so watch that next, and I'll see you there.